I was asked to tell something about the company, about our role in BrainGain, and finally something about our view on valorization. So that's what I've done, and that's how my talk is going to be divided. First, I'll tell a little bit about TMSi. Then I'll tell a little bit about the role in BrainGain, and finally I'll share our view on valorization with you. TMSi, first of all, we just saw TMS on the screen in the previous talk. So let me make clear that TMS doesn't stand for transmagnetic stimulation this time, but it stands for Twente Medical Systems. So that's something totally different. And that tells you where we are located. We are currently located in Hoogendoorn in Twente. What is our mission? Well, our mission is to measure a large variety of electrophysiological signals under adverse circumstances. So we don't just want to measure some very simple signals, but we want to be able to measure them under very tough circumstances. And the tough circumstances can vary. They can, for example, be in the presence of very large electrical fields. We would like to say magnetic as well, but you can't shield against magnetic, so that we can't do. But we can definitely do something against electrical fields. But difficult circumstances can also be moving subjects, for example, or electrodes with very poor impedances. That's where we thrive. When the circumstances get tough, we still would like to say that we can measure. And just to give you an idea, the technology was developed originally because people wanted to measure small infants in incubators, newborns in incubators. That's very tough circumstances because you have an electromotor there, you have all kind of equipment around the baby, and you're not allowed to put very heavy electrodes on it either. So that's quite a challenge, and that's why our present technology was developed. Okay, the solution. I'm not going to bore you with electronics, but just put a picture on here to impress you all. It's called the reference amplifier. And basically what we do is we actively shield every signal that the amplifier measures. So every signal has its own individual shielding, you could say. And the take-home message from this thing is that it's also a scalable amplifier. It doesn't matter whether it's 2 or 200 channels. The specifications of the amp are still exactly the same. That's the beauty of this reference amplifier. And the other thing as a take-home message is that we never put filters in there other than an anti-aliasing filter very high up. But for the rest, we do every filtering in software. And that has tremendous advantages that you can be more precise in software than you can ever be in hardware. So, enough about the technology. A little bit about the company. Today we're 25 people, very dedicated people. And about 50% of our people are active in R&D. So we are very much focused on R&D, developing new things. And you could say that we're very good at developing them. We're not so good at selling them maybe, because our focus on marketing is a lot lower than on R&D currently. We focus on, is that me? We focus on advanced amplifiers, as I said, also on stimulators, because they kind of come as a package deal sometimes with amplifiers. It makes a lot of sense to make those as well. Sensors, of course, are important. If you have good amplifiers, you still need good sensors to go along with them. And finally, we have software, but that's not our main focus, but we have what I would call a toolbox software where you can quickly put together applications and try them out. So very good for prototyping, for example. We sell to research customers, and then we sell ourselves. Almost all of you here in the hall are researchers, and I'm not saying too much when I say that you all have different ideas, different wishes, etc., etc. So you get individual treatment when you deal with the company, because every one of you is different. So that we do ourselves, and but the majority of our sales, of course, is more what I would call a prefabricated product, where you have a package that you sell to more people at the same time, and where you add other things like more sophisticated software, more dedicated software. Oftentimes transmagnetic stimulator, for example, which we don't make, or localization, which we don't make. So then it's done by a partner, and we have a variety of OEM partners that do that. And of course, one of our goals to grow is to find more OEM partners, because there are so many medical disciplines, so you can still find more in different disciplines if you do your best. We're ISO 13485 certified, so all our products are medical products. We even make active implantable medical devices. And of course, because of our research market, we have strong connections with researchers around the world. And we sell around the world. Application areas, I just put it up there again to impress you, of course. There are many. And I couldn't put them all up there. There are many more. But people literally use our amplifiers to measure, for example, EEG or evoked potentials, but also to measure 250 channels of cardiology, of ECG, and then map it back to the heart, for example, or to measure high-density EMG, or to sleep applications, uterine contractions, smooth muscle, you name it, we do it. So that's basically a very wide scope. The products, like I said, we can scale them from small to large, so we have small boxes and we have big boxes. Electrodes and different sensor systems come with it, of course, and also other sensors than electrical sensors like respiration or pressure or flow, things like that. We can all put them together with our amplifiers. Software, as I already said, all we need is a software that can work as a toolbox where people can quickly put together an application and go with it. We often do that as a service to our customers. We put it together for them. And all the screens that you see here, for example, have all been generated with the same software. And I would say that typically it takes half a day or a day of puzzling before we have such a software that feels like a machine, so to speak. Like for example, the one with the black screen looks like a patient monitor. We can make that look and feel in half a day or a day or so with that software. But it's not like MATLAB or LabVIEW where you have all your in-depth analysis, of course. So most of our research customers use our software to acquire the data, and then they often go to a more sophisticated package for the review. Distribution channels are already mentioned. We do the research market ourselves. That's also because it keeps us fresh, it keeps us on top of things. We learn new things from our customers. And then the more dedicated markets we do by partners. And one of the partners is going to be the next speaker, Sapiens, brain stimulation, deep brain stimulation. We are developing the hardware for them, at least the non-implantable hardware. And they will take that product and add a lot of software and make it into a package and sell it to that market. Okay, that concludes my description of TMSi. And now our role in BrainGain. Well, when BrainGain started, we were asked to participate in every project in BrainGain. So when you look at the schedule, you will see TMSi in every one of the projects, not in all the work packages, mind, but in all the projects we are represented. And of course, we quickly found out that we should have said no in some cases, because you can't be in all the projects at the same time with the same intensity. So what we decided to do, of course, talking with the MT, is that we focused on the things that we are really good at and that would also benefit ourselves and let's say, would guarantee valorization, that we could do the things that we could also use commercially afterwards. So what we've done is we've developed new amplifier technology under BrainGain, and I think some of you have seen it in real life in the demo. It's grown to 32 channels now. We initially developed a 16-channel one under BrainGain, and then we continued to 32. We've developed a DBS stimulator, which Hubert is going to talk a bit more about, I assume. We developed water-based electrodes and head caps. We call them head wrap to differentiate them from the complete cap. For quick application, no gel, no scratching, works as soon as you put it on, especially for BCI, where you typically only need a subset of electrodes. We support, of course, the field trip initiative to have all our data stream into the field trip format. And finally, we've just begun on the basis of our stimulator development to also develop a DC stimulator, multi-channel, with Dick Stegeman and his people. That's going to be the focus of the last year and a half of our role in BrainGain, and of course we'll continue with the other things as well. So that's about our role in BrainGain. Our achievement so far: we have a prototype of the new wireless amplifier, and I hope to soon be able to say that it's also on the market. We're very close now. We have prototypes of new water-based electrodes and the head wrap. You see it here on action in on the head of our technical director, who was sitting outside with one on his head as well. And like I said before, we demonstrated in the demo today. And we've done extensive testing with it, also looking at the signal characteristics. And if you just glance at the traces, the red one is from EEG cup electrodes with normal gel, and the green one is from the water electrodes. And when you look at the numbers very carefully, then you see that the RMS numbers are even, with the same amplifier of course, are even a little lower with the water than with the gel. So that's very interesting. They're very stable too. Okay. Again, this is just a quick picture. You see the prototype of the stimulator, and then when you go from left to right, you see on the right-hand side, you see an initial, the way it's going to look. That's still a prototype, of course, in the final version, when it has to look nice and be shiny, so that researchers are just like human beings. They also like sexy things, we found out, so we try to package them nicely too. And under that you see another role in BrainGain that is much more hidden in the background. That is that we've been doing a lot of simulations and measurements, actual measurements with deep brain needles, for example. I was telling before that we want to be able to measure under very tough circumstances. Well, needles that start at an impedance of a few mega ohm or more and change over time while they are in the brain, those are tough circumstances. So that was one where we had to put all our expertise at work to try and make amplifiers that could work with those needles. And I think we've reached that point now. Okay. A bonus deliverable. I'm always told that the MT is keen on bonus deliverable. Well, what we did together with Sapiens is that we got a 0.1 subsidy, so 0.1 funding for the further development of the DBS technology. And so we're also working on that right now, together with Sapiens, and the medical partner, the clinical partner is the AMC Amsterdam. Okay, our view on valorization. Well, let me begin with a few open doors. Most of these you will know already, but still I would like to mention them. I think that it's clear that valorization is in the genes of companies. When you have a few companies along in a subsidy project, they are going to push for valorization, if nothing else, because that's their way of existing. If we can't earn some money in some way, then eventually we're not going to last very long. So we will always drive for valorization because we have to. And you see that in the roles that we took in BrainGain. Of course, we were a little selfish, you could say, when we decided that we were going to focus on amplifiers and on sensors and stuff like that, because we know that if we make those well, we can sell them. And we can't just sell them in let's say, BCI, for example, but we can sell them for many more applications. So that's one that comes natural to companies. The other remark, the next remark I would like to make is that it's a lot easier if you include valorization from day one than kind of go at it at the end of the project. That's not criticism, because this is first and foremost a research project. But I think that it's clear that if you think about it from day one, then you kind of build it in better from the beginning. At the same time, I posed a question there, and I think I know the answer, but I'd like you to answer it all, is can researchers serve two gods? Can you really go for good fundamental research and at the same time focus on valorization, for example? And my modest answer would be is you probably cannot, because if you want to be completely open in your research, then you should probably not prioritize the valorization too high, because then your research is going to suffer. So that is again a plea for having some companies in the project as well, because then the companies will take care of that more, because that's their natural role. Then another one that I think for most of you will be an open door, but maybe for some others it will be an eye-opener, and that is that developing and implementing a business plan is at least as much work as developing a product or a service. The product is not done by the time that you have the prototype finished. That's in fact where most of the work still begins. And you need to develop how you're going to sell it, to whom you're going to sell it, at what price level, which distribution channels you're going to use, how you're going to position it vis-a-vis the competitive products or the non-competitive products, etc., etc. There's an awful lot of development behind there that is not technical, but that is sales and marketing, so to speak. And I think most people underestimate that. They think, we've made this very nice box, now how come the whole world is not buying it yet? That's because there's this whole thing behind it. The next thing, again an open door, is that research standards and product standards don't always match up. We simply, especially when we develop a medical device, we need to comply with standards that where you would say, how come? Why would you worry about that? Well, we have to worry about it because we can't get the product certified if we don't follow those standards. So again, there's a difference there between, let's say, the research world and the product world. Then another one, I see I mistyped it there, that the world is an awful lot larger than the Netherlands. BrainGain is a Dutch project, and there's a lot of focus on the Netherlands, of course, but at the same time, if you want to be successful with a product, you really have to think international. For example, you have to think US, because as a general rule, the US market is about 50% of the world market as far as medical devices, for example, are concerned. It's a good rule. In most cases it applies. So if you haven't thought about whether that product will fly in the US, then you might sell a few, let's say in the Netherlands or even the countries around us, but then it's never going to be a successful product that really gets all the benefits that you would want it to be. You have to think worldwide. And finally, and also very important, and I often said that before, is that you can have the cure for cancer, literally, but if no one is willing to pay for it, then your product is not going to be a success. Now, with the cure for cancer, there's a good chance that the patient himself or the family will pay, but with most products, if there's no reimbursement structure behind the product, then it may be a fantastic product, but people are not going to buy it because the money is simply not there. So that's another thing that you have to build in from the start. How am I going to sell the product or the service? Sometimes it's easier to sell a service than a product. Okay, and then the most important observation maybe, and it's a very simple one, and that is products need a champion. If there's no one championing the product after it's developed and it goes to the market, then the product is going to be a failure, at least in my mind. Some examples from the real life. You all remember Steve Jobs, who recently passed away. I think 50% or maybe even more of the product, of the Apple product, was Steve Jobs. He was the champion of his own products. Microsoft, if the founder, Bill Gates, hadn't been there, then Microsoft would probably never have made it. And that goes for your products as well. If you just say, we'll hand it over to somebody, and the somebody there is not believing in the product, is not fighting for the product, so to speak, then in my definition the product is going to fail. So with those words I'd like to close. Thank you very much.